Health inspectors of Reddit share their horror stories. Going to eat out at your favorite restaurant always brings out joy. You don't have to scratch your head planning a meal, line up and go grocery shopping, spend hours prepping and cooking, and lastly, clean up after. All you have to do is put on a pair of neat pants, look at the menu, and choose. It's that easy. But if you don't choose your restaurants wisely, you could end up eating some rather questionable ingredients that aren't supposed to be there. We all know how many restaurants are clean and ready to serve you a scrumptious, carefully prepared meal. But there are still some managers out there that couldn't care less for sanitation and will do anything to lessen expenses. Health inspectors, also known as saviors of the public's health, can have a pretty disgusting day on the job. It's oddly similar to crime scene investigators and other professionals who come into contact with human skin. Anyway, this video about gross discoveries by health inspectors comes courtesy of Reddit. Inspectors themselves share the dirtiest, grossest things they've come across. Be warned though, most of these stories aren't for the faint of heart or the light of stomach. Before we start, make sure to subscribe to Starface Productions and hit the bell icon for more Ask Reddit Answer videos you didn't know you needed. Also, press the thumbs up button if you really find this video gross. These are Reddit's health inspectors' horror stories. A Crew, Adventurous Object 3. My dad used to tell me about this local Sonic that got shut down because 2 workers were found in a chili, and come to find out they had been doing it for some time. Yummy Salsa Qualified Coca. Not a health inspector, but I talked to one. A beloved local Mexican restaurant was known for having incredible salsa. People would stop in and buy jars to take home because it was so good. It was discovered upon inspection that every time the vat holding the salsa started running low, they just kind of topped it off. For months, it had literally never been emptied, let alone cleaned. A perpetual soup made of raw vegetables and juices. A Massive Infestation. J.S. Baker IV. On a tour of a bakery in Oregon that was later cited and shut down for a massive infestation of roaches. They were an occasional nuisance. It happens that went unchecked for a year, rediscovered in the flour and grinders and ovens, prompting the further review. Opening the access panels for the subfloor's utilities revealed a multitude coming from an exposed sewer opening through the concrete foundation. Starship Troopers, folks? A bug planet. Rough find. Unwanted frozen meat. Drunk Monk 88. Had a Chinese where we live that serves delicious all-you-can-eat buffets. Health inspector turned up while we were there eating and closed the place down as they weren't using chicken. It was a seagull. Oops. Turns out this is not the only one. Here's another story by Rhino Ham. A family member pulled up to inspect a Chinese restaurant and saw them dragging a carcass through the back doors. He demanded to enter the kitchen and saw them chopping up a deer that an employee had hit with their car. Creepy Crawler. Filthy Rich Potato. They had a wasp infestation in the walls. It was terrifying. They were trying to crawl through the electrical sockets and you could hear buzzing coming from all around. It was one of the most terrifying days of my life in that building. OMG. Yuck. Lawrence Tucker. I'm an insurance inspector. Went down to inspect the basement of Chinese Takeout Restaurant, which seemed oddly small. Couldn't find a boiler or fuse box. Told this to the owner, who removed a sheetrock wall. The grease trap had overflowed and there were at least 2 inches of grease on the floor. They had put down some wood planks to walk on. I was gagging. Truly one of the most disgusting sights I ever had the misfortune to see. Ichiban Teriyaki. The horror of raw. There was a teriyaki restaurant called Ichiban in my town that got shut down for not having soap in the employee restroom and for keeping room temperature chicken in a 5-gallon bucket next to the grill. This happened more than once. The health inspectors called it Ichiban Teriyaki. Well, there's a similar kind of restaurant told by Crispy 50. There was a teriyaki joint I went to once back in the day that my friends always called Scariyaki, the only time I ever saw a roach in Seattle. It wasn't tasty though. Restaurant Management 101. Bob's Asperger's. Not a health inspector, but we had a local Chinese restaurant get shut down for washing their dishes in the lake behind the restaurant. Here is another similar situation, story by Blue Bear. There used to be this restaurant in my town that got shut down years ago. It was like a Korean barbecue place, and everyone who remembers it claims the food was amazing. They are usually then a little hesitant to tell you why it got shut down. Apparently, it was because they would recycle food. He did not stay long. The Neckbone. Did a brief stint as a public health inspector in 2007. Not a pleasant job. Didn't stick it out for long. Couple highlights. Washing russets in the dish machine before baking. A low-temp chlorine system, no less. An inch-thick layer of dull pink scum found at the bottom of an ancient ice machine. Storage of frozen foods outdoors on rooftop during the winter. No shelter, covered in snow, ravens picking at various boxes of raw meat and seafood. A dish pit with a foot-deep sinkhole just in front of the machine, covered with a pair of 2x6 planks to allow access. A line cook working the salad station with no pans. Quat sanitizer bottles filled with oven degreaser. A line cook breaking a plate on the flat-top grill and attempting to continue cooking without proper cleaning. A restaurant with a special goods. Lady Bexy. Not a health inspector, but man, do I have a story. Buckle up, it's a good one. I used to live in the very small, very northern town of La Ronge, Saskatchewan, Canada. I only know the juicy details because my dad was fire chief at the time. We had like 3 restaurants to speak of. The Italian place, the Subs Pizza place, and our star, the fried chicken place. No one ever seemed to eat at the chicken place. The actual health inspector for the region had been on them for ages, but they just paid the fine. It was disgusting. Roach infested, last been cleaned sometime before it was a fried chicken place. It was a mystery. Until the glorious day it caught on fire. It went up like a tinderbox and burned for 14 hours straight because they had never cleaned the grease traps and the whole damn building was saturated. The fire department decided to just let it burn because the foam for grease fires is expensive, fam. Pretty soon, most of the town had turned out to watch the show, so we got a good view of the RCMP rolling up, lights and sirens, and yelling that the firefighters needed to get into the back room. There was evidence there. Years of work down the drain if it burned, yada yada. By this point, this was more excitement than we'd had in years. On fire and Mounties. Then the evidence started coming out, and guys, there was so much heroin. Blocks and blocks of heroin. As the Mounties were guarding this growing pile of hard drugs, out came the, drumroll please, semi-automatic assault rifles. During all this madness, someone had dragged a classic Star Trek pinball machine out of the place's lobby to the other side of the street. While the RCMP were collecting very large guns, a black pickup screeched up. 2 guys jumped out the back and loaded the pinball machine. The truck sped off into the proverbial sunset. No one ever owned up to being in on it. After witnessing a heated discussion about whether or not the RCMP could confiscate the turnout gear that was covered in heroin, a bunch of us went down the street and bought a boatload of pizzas and subs for the firefighters. Wasn't long until we were told pretty sternly to go home and get off my fire scene, so we missed the giant lockbox being pried open on the hood of an RCMP cruiser to reveal about $80,000. So yeah, turns out the little old Chinese couple wasn't so much selling fried chicken as running drugs and guns into northern Saskatchewan. Turns out the place had recently been condemned too. Ultimately, they did confiscate the turnout gear, but bought the whole department new sets, so my dad maintains he came out on top. Turns out, the sketchy fried chicken place was actually running drugs and semi-automatic rifles into northern Saskatchewan. The entire town found out when the place burned down and someone stole a pinball machine out of the burning building. Did you have any idea how restaurant management ever got this bad? Have you ever observed something worse? Let us know in the comments below, and please don't forget to subscribe to Starface Productions and hit the bell icon for more updates. By the way, give our video a thumbs up if you gagged midway. Till the next video.